What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to run through a couple changes that I've made to the bike recently. Over the past few months I haven't been in love with my suspension setup. I was running the Fox Factory 38 fork and the Float X2 factory shock, and I just couldn't quite get along with it. On my previous bike I was running the RockShox Zeb and then the RockShox Super Deluxe Air Shock, and I liked those a lot more, honestly, than the Fox stuff. You know, I think everybody kind of has a preference. Fox or RockShox, Fox or RockShox. And it comes down to personal preference, you know. So I had been flirting with the idea of going back to RockShox stuff. But I thought, hey, if I'm gonna make some suspension changes, this is my chance to try something new. So we've got something completely new, very different than what I was running previously. I have a few weeks before my next enduro race to sort of get used to this new setup and make sure that I like it before I stick with it long term. I've had my eye on MRP. MRP is pretty well known for their chain guides and Bashguards, and they do a really good job with those. But from what I hear, they also make some great suspension. I threw it on a couple days ago, and this is my first ride with it. So we're going to sort of get the feel for it today, make sure my air pressures are where I want them to be, and make a few adjustments if needed. So first is the Ribbon Air Fork. This one is for 29-inch wheels. It's got 170 millimeters of travel. It is pretty easily adjustable though, from 170 millimeters down to 140 millimeters. So that's pretty cool. MRP also makes a coil fork. I went with the Air though. They offer what's called a shred coat, and so you can customize the color of your fork. In this case, I went with a stone gray lower and a stone gray upper, which I feel like looks so sick, especially with an all-black bike. I think the gray looks really good. Obviously not necessary, but if you like to customize the color of your bike, it's cool to be able to mix up the color of your fork. You know, most companies don't offer that. So they also have several different colors of decals that you can choose from to get this fork to look exactly how you want it. So one of the first things I noticed when pulling this MRP fork out of the box was how light it is. It's a full pound lighter than my Fox 38 fork. The main reason for that is because of the narrower stanchion diameter. So the Fox 38 obviously had 38 millimeter stanchions. This MRP Ribbon Air Fork has 35 millimeter stanchions with 170 millimeters of travel. So that's kind of different from the way that a lot of the other fork manufacturers are going. For anything that's 170 millimeters of travel, you usually have, you know, at least 36 or mostly 38 millimeter stanchions. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to feel, how that'll translate on the trail. Some unique features about this fork is that it has a positive and a negative air chamber. So you get a lot of adjustability that way. So in the positive air chamber, you pump it up to your recommended PSI for your body weight. For me, I think it was about 75 PSI. And then in the negative air chamber, if you set it right around the same PSI of 75, for example, that's going to lead to a very neutral feeling support off the top. If you add a little bit more PSI to that negative chamber, you get a more plush feeling off the top. So you get quite a bit of adjustability there with those positive and negative air chambers. So the Ribbon Air Fork has a low speed compression dial. It also has what's called a ramp control dial. So MRP describes that as a combination between high-speed compression and bottom-out resistance, and it's got rebound adjustment on the bottom. So pretty much everything you need to get the fork to feel exactly how you want it. I'm really curious to see if it's supportive as I need. You know, I do a lot of technical riding and racing and jumping, and so I'm curious to see if the narrower diameter stanchions make a difference and if I really need those 38 millimeter stanchions. I'm not a super heavy rider. I feel like with the 38 and even the Zeb, I had to run pretty low air pressures in order to use full travel and get the fork to feel comfortable. So we'll see. So next is the MRP Hazzard Coil Shock. I'm really excited to try this. I've never ran a coil shock before, but from what I understand, they offer a few advantages, mostly in the way of ease of maintenance, consistency, and a very plush and planted feel. So I'm interested to try that out. I'm running this with MRP's Enduro Super Light Spring. This is a 450 pound spring. All the spring calculators that I used put me between 425 and 475, so I split the difference, went with 450. We'll have to see how that feels. The Hazzard shock has adjustments for low speed compression, high speed compression, rebound, and it also has the shred lever, which is a lockout lever. I got to test that out a little bit on the climb up here, and man, it seriously locks out that shock. Then I tested some single track climbing on the way up here with the lockout lever off, and I noticed immediately a difference in the way that this coil shock felt compared to my previous air shock. The best way I can describe it right now is that it felt much more consistent when pedaling. I felt like I knew what to expect. Each pedal stroke, it felt much more supportive and consistent. So yeah, obviously first ride, further testing is needed. So the last change I've made to talk about is that I went back to an MRP Chainguide and Bashguard. I've had these on previous bikes and they just work better than other chain guides and Bashguards I've tried. These MRP chain guides have the ability to adjust up and down and side to side, which allows you to get it set perfectly. You can shift all through your gears and make sure that it's not rubbing on either side of the chain guide. This bike came with an E13 chain guide and Bashguard, and no matter how I adjusted it, I could not get it to stop rubbing on the chain. So I don't know if you can really see on the video, but here on this part of the chain, it rubbed away the black coating from my SRAM XX1 chains. So that was super annoying. These MRP chain guides and Bashguards have different options for the backing plate. So I think they've got aluminum. This one is carbon to shed a few grams of weight. Yeah, there's a reason that, you know, a lot of the World Cup riders use these MRP chain guides and Bashguards. So that about wraps it up, guys. Has anybody else ever used MRP suspension? And if so, how did you like it? What were your thoughts? Thanks for watching, and in the upcoming weeks we're going to be putting the MRP suspension to the test. I'll keep you updated and catch you guys in the next one.